So, bore da,
Good morning. Welcome to this meeting of the Planning Committee.
On March the 10th, 2021. This meeting is being webcast with the exception of any business that the Council resolves to exclude the press and public because of likely disclosure of exempt information as defined by the Local Government Act 1972. So that is that. Just a few little bits. We'll go to the declarations of interest in just a moment. I know at least one member will have a declaration of interest. So we'll go to that in just a couple of moments. But just if you just get yourselves organised in terms of, you should have had an email last night from Judith Williams, which is the late sheets, the blue sheets as we call them. There is quite a lot of information on that. So if you just make sure you've got that up with yourself, up and running, if you like. I will just go into apologies before we do the declarations of interest. So agenda item number 1 is apologies. So I haven't had any directly myself. If you have had any or you know of anyone that's not on the meeting, then if you just unmute and let us know now. Nope. Okay. So that is that. So hopefully you found all the blue sheets and the running, or that's obviously got the running order of the day. So as you can see, we've got the public speaker items first. We've got 4 agenda items today. I can hand over to the monitoring officer, but I just need to pass. This has got the information here if you want to read it. So just give us 1 moment and I'm just going to need to pass over a little bit of information to our legal officer. Okay, so this is agenda item number 2. So it's declarations of interest and members to declare any personal or prejudicial interest in the business identified to be considered at this meeting. So I'll just pass you over to Tim Dillon, who will read out a little bit of information for you. Okay.
Morning, members. In relation to the declaration of interest item, members will be aware of the requirement under the Council's Code of Conduct to declare any personal or prejudicial interests in respect of any business to be considered at today's meeting. Such interest should be declared now or as soon as the councillor affected becomes aware that they have a personal or prejudicial interest in today's business. All members declaring an interest are required to state clearly what the interest is and to advise whether it is a personal interest or a personal and prejudicial interest as defined in the Code of Conduct. Any member declaring a prejudicial interest is required to leave the chamber for the duration of the business and can take no part in the proceedings. Members with a personal interest only may take part in the debate and any votes. If a personal prejudicial if a personal or personal and prejudicial interest is declared today that has not previously been disclosed and recorded, the councillor concerned will be required to complete and sign a declaration of interest form, which is available from the committee support staff here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so if you would like to unmute and just say if you have a personal or a declaration of interest to make. I thought you might have one.
Item number 6, it's a personal and prejudicial interest. So
Thank you. Yeah, so on number 6, that will be the last item. So if you leave the meeting, then there'll be no need to return because it'll be the end of the meeting. Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? If you just unmute.
Yeah, totally going off the subject, Chair. Enrich Wynne has been in touch with me. He's saying he can't get in the meeting.
I think he is in. He's here, Brian.
He's
thank
in
you.
now, is he?
Yeah, he's in.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. No, that's
my
really
interest.
no, that's fine. As always, if you find you do have a declaration of interest to make at any point during the meeting, then just unmute and let us know as soon as that arises. Okay. So we will go on to agenda item number 3, urgent matters as agreed by the chair. I don't have any. Then we'll go on to agenda item number 4, which is the minutes on pages 7 to 16. And this is to confirm the accuracy of the minutes of the Planning Committee meeting held on the 10th of February 2021. So if we just go through that page by page, we've got page 7. Okay, and then turning over to page 8, we have 2 applications, application 5 and 6. And then that's application 6 continues on to page 9 and 10 as well. Page 10, we have application 7. Then page 11, application number 8. Page 12, we're looking at application number 9. Page 13 is applications 10 and the start of application 11. Page 14 is application numbers 12 and 13. Page 15 is application number 14, and then the minutes finish on page 16. So first of all, has anyone got any comments on any of that? Again, unmute if you have. For this, if we have can we have a proposer? We've got Councillor Anne Davis and Councillor Alan James, I can see here in the centre of my screen. So it's proposed by Councillor Anne Davis, seconded by Councillor Alan James. Can we have a show of hands? That will be fine. And then if there is, thank you very much. I can see lots of hands up there. Also, just I'll give people an opportunity. If anyone is against the minutes, then if you unmute and speak now, just so you've got that opportunity, or wants to abstain, if there's anyone that doesn't want to say they're a true, to confirm they're a true record.
I wasn't present, so I will not be voting.
Okay, diolch yn fawr. Gwyneth, cynghorydd Gwyneth Councillor. Likewise for you. Yeah, diolch yn fawr, Emrys. Cynghorydd Emrys Wyn hefyd.
Yeah, and my chair.
Okay. I think, but I could be wrong. I think even if you weren't there, you're still allowed to confirm minutes. But anyway, it's fine to not, but I think you can. Anyway, right, moving on to the applications we have for permission today. We were going to start with application number 5, which is on page 17 of your reports. Okay, so the ward is Llangollen. The ward members are Councillors Graham Timms and Councillor Melvin Mile. The application number is 03/2020/0909/PF. The proposal is the erection of 1 dwelling, construction of a new vehicular access and associated works. It's land at and the part garden of 15 MAES BACHE, Llangollen. We have a speaker for this. The officer recommendation is to refuse. We do not have any public speakers against, but we do have a public speaker for, which is Bob Dewey, the agent. So Mr. Dewey, you will have 3 minutes to address the committee. Usually if you were in council, there would be a little stopwatch to time you. But obviously you won't be able to see it, so it might be worth having either a watch just to make sure that you are keeping to the time, because we are quite strict in the 3 minutes, okay? So whenever you start talking, I will start timing your 3 minutes to address the committee.
Okay, Chair, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, yep, you're fine.
Thank you for inviting me. This is an application to build a house in the settlement, in a domestic garden, and it meets your normal standard proposals. I think the application report starts off on a rather wrong footing. It isn't tandem development. It has its own independent access. It's not backland development, and it has its own highway frontage. So mention is made of precedent. Well, if you're worried about precedent, you should not have been granting the very high density development of nearly 100 houses and several other dwellings on the same hillside. If they are okay in the AONB, so should this one be. And relying on an old appeal decision made on an entirely different proposal in a totally different context cannot be right. It seems to us that the AONB officer is on his own in thinking that the small, well-designed, architecturally designed dwelling will harm the beauty of the area. The site is a manicured garden with a high wooden fence. Is that the natural beauty he wants to protect? The local people, the local councillors, the town council and CADU don't agree. Indeed, CADU say the proposed development will not have an impact upon the World Heritage Site. Is it really okay in a World Heritage context, but not in the AONB? The officer takes issue with the height and design of the property. We're mystified. It's a modest dwelling of simple design, specifically tailored to the topography of the site. It would be far more constructive for her to tell us how she feels the design is objectionable, and we could have considered changes. She raises privacy concerns. Well, this was tried at the last appeal and the inspector dismissed it. So I'm not sure why she thinks it should be raised again. A small balcony is some 20 meters from the neighbour's garden. I don't know how that takes away privacy. 5 other dwellings in the road have balconies. It doesn't seem to be an issue for them. And again, we could have dealt with that by means of a condition or obscure panels if we'd been asked. She suggests there will be concern about light spill and noise. From one small house, what on earth does she think is going to happen here? It just seems to us that the planners are determined to throw every possible excuse against something. It's not backland, it's not tandem, it doesn't set a precedent which has not already been set. It's a small, simply designed house of simple materials set into the slope of the ground, and it can't possibly impact on the neighbour's property. Indeed, the neighbour supports it anyway. It will provide a dwelling for a local resident anxious to remain in the town and next to her parents. We respectfully urge you to grant, please, planning permission. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'll go to the local member. First, I have had an email from Councillor Graham Timms, the other local member, which I will read out any sort of points that the other local member who's on committee, Councillor Melvin Mile, if you don't raise any of the points that Mr. Timms, Councillor Graham Timms has put in the email, but I know you've got a copy of the email as well. So anyway, I'll bring in local member Councillor Melvin Mile.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to go to the recommendation, just the number one, that the proposal not respect the character of development in the immediate locality or the openness of the area. Yesterday, I went up on the other side of the valley to an area called Gavron. Gavron is about the same height as this application. And so I was able to scan the whole south side of the valley. So starting from the west, the first thing you see is a new reservoir, a concrete reservoir, which has been built on behalf of Welsh Water. It looks as if it's a flying saucer that's been crash landed into the valley side. This is directly above the town. I understand it was a necessary development, but it certainly isn't pretty, and it certainly doesn't enhance that part of it's only 200 yards away from this house. Next door to that, moving along, we have this development that Mr. Dewey mentioned of 95 properties. It's a scar on the landscape at the moment, and there about 20 of those properties will be up at the same height as the application, and they really will stick out. But apparently that was okay, so the AONB didn't worry about that. As to the application itself, you have to sort of search for the area, for its location. It will hardly be seen. Its roof line will be below the rear fence of the property, and even that is then backed up by trees behind it. How the AONB can say nothing has changed, it's beyond comprehension, really. So just to sort of talk about the overlooking side of it, just have to mention that paragraph 4.2.1 of the officer's report emphasizes that the principle of housing development on this side is acceptable. It's within the development area. as Mr. Dewey has pointed out, it has its own access at the back. Highways are not concerned about it. So I went up to that site yesterday as well, to check on the overlooking aspect. I stood on the level of the balcony, at the level the balcony would be at, but I had to come 8 feet further forward to see exactly what was going on, because the balcony is not there yet, if it will be. I can see the gable end of number 16, that's it. I can see the roof and a bit of 15, but number 14 is barely visible. These houses have been there for over 40 years. Looking at the drawing, it just shows straight lines. There are trees and shrubs in the gardens obscuring these premises. It makes me wonder if anyone's actually, it makes me wonder if the officer actually looked over the fence. I know she did, because there's a picture being taken, and well, it's not overlooking. Anyway, again, Mr. Dewey pointed out that the planning appeal in 2000, Mr. Dewey pointed out that in the planning appeal of the 2007 application, the inspector then said he didn't see that there was any problem with overlooking. The previous application was for an outline application for a house built on the site and on the slope. This application is different in that the house is set into the slope. With the late representations yesterday, NRW came in. They haven't been heard of before. I actually can't believe that we're talking about the same application. I'm bumbling and speechless. In the opinion of Cadu, all was good. I think we may be talking about two different applications here. The inspector in 2007 was more concerned about the nature of the lane which will access the back of this property. But this has changed in the last 14 years, because there's been other developments behind it where people have to use the lane anyway. And as regards the light spill from this property, it's a very small property, but above it are two other properties which stand out far more than this ever will. So I'd like to come back on this, Chair, but and I'd leave my well, I have to come back if you don't mind. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Coming back at the end, obviously you can see the sort of direction that you're going at. And if you were to be minded to go against the officer recommendation, it's just when you come back just to look at the two reasons for refusal on page 44 and why you think that it would be okay to grant, if that's how you were thinking, just to give you that sort of heads up now, when you come back. Somebody else obviously might do that in the meantime. Councillor Graham Timms, the other local member, has emailed me, and I'm just going to pick out a couple of the points that he has said. He's saying that the opinion expressed in the report says that development would cause unacceptable harm to the character and the landscape and appearance of the landscape. His opinion, so Councillor Graham Timms' opinion, is that this effect would not even be noticed, as it would fall naturally within the visual boundary created by MAES BACHE. And then he also talks about the large number of houses nearby. And he would like to support the use of this land within the development boundary of LLANGOLLEN. In his opinion, it is using appropriate land within the development boundary, bringing the benefit the residents can access services and shops in the town centre. Using land within the boundary is far more preferable than eating into surrounding green spaces to support housing demands. So that's just a flavour of what the other local member feels about this. Okay, so that was his opinion. I was just reading out there. Councillor Mark Young, you have a question?
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, just a couple of clarifications, please. So item 1.4, it talks about the application is within the local development boundary, but on the edge. I don't understand why they're saying on the edge. Is it in or isn't it? It also talks about the road being at the top of the property. So obviously, just for comparison, we had a Melodin development where we had a whole road for 100 houses outside the LDP. Is this road in the LDP or isn't it? And when we talk about the impact, when you look at the picture on 1.6, there's properties above this property, this site. So when you say impact and the local development boundary, actually on the picture shown, the impact of the vicarage site, you couldn't compare this to that. There's obviously more impact on this one. And just confirm, is the properties above it? Because on the picture I'm looking at, 1.6, there's a number of properties higher than this. So if they're not impacting it and they were allowed, how could you say the impact here is not acceptable? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brian Jones, do you have your hand raised as well?
Yeah, it is, Chair. Yeah, I was playing about trying to see it wouldn't go up, and then it went up, and then it went down, but now it's up. So now I will say a few words. Obviously, I read the papers before the meeting. When I've just listened to Councillor Miles there, who I hold in high regard, even though he doesn't know it, he's put a totally different slant on all of this, and it makes it difficult for the planning committee to read the officers' reports, and then you listen to the local knowledge, which you have to put quite a considerable bit of weighting onto that. And I've looked at it now and listened to Councillor Miles and thought, yeah, it does appear a different application when you listen to some of the points he's just made. And I'll be sitting alongside Councillor Mervyn Miles on this one. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do officers want to come in at this point? Bringing Paul Griffin.
Thank you, Chair. Just going back to Councillor Young's questions and for clarity, yes, the site is within the development boundary. The boundary line is drawn along the road. So if you zoomed in, you might find the actual highway itself, but there's no development associated with this application that would be outside of the development boundary. Yes, there are buildings to the south of the property, which is at a higher elevation. However, you'll see that there's topography and the sort of the screening of trees, etc., so they don't stand out in the same way as this site does from across the valley. What I would say at this point is, and it's quite clear, you know, from the local members' comments that they're taking a different view to the officer. I would just emphasise that, you know, when you've had a previous appeal decision, albeit sort of over 10 years ago, the comments of that inspector are quite clear that the development of this site would have an unacceptable impact on the character of the AONB. Now, I note that members are drawing parallels to other development, and again, that may be the justification for taking a contrary view, and that would be fine. But I just think you have to be sure that you're giving full weight to the impact on the AONB. It's a national statutory designation, so it is right that you give full weight to that when you're making your decision. Similarly, just to clarify, there was some comments there about the distances to the boundary. When you look at the site plan, the balcony and the first floor lounge window is at the furthest point from the boundary with the site is only 4.5 metres. Now, the SPG on residential standards says that if you've got a first floor lounge window, it should be ideally 12 metres at least from the boundary. So obviously you can see where the officers have made their sort of recommendation. They've based it on a previous appeal decision. They've based it on the comments of the AONB and NRW, and they've looked at their own adopted guidance, which sets out the standards of distances that we should be aiming for. Obviously, members are entitled to take a different view, and so I think that's me done for now, Chair. Thank you.
Chair, can I just come back on one point there, please?
You can, yeah.
Yeah, so the comment there about the visual impact of properties, I would say, looking at the picture, it's quite clear that the properties above this site are more visual than the site we're talking about. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that comment. Is anyone else wanting to speak? I can't see any raised hands. If anyone does want to speak, then it might be best to unmute and just start speaking if you do. Okay, what I'll do is oh, Cynghorwyr Gwyneth Kensley, yeah.
Yes, please. I just want to ask 4.2.3. second paragraph, the Development Management Manual advises. I haven't come across this before. This is maybe because I've missed some meetings, but is this one of the Bibles that we follow?
Okay, do officers want to comment on that? The development, I forgot what it was called. Development Management Manual. There you go.
Thank you. Yeah, the Development Management Manual is a Welsh Government document. And yeah, I suppose you could refer to it as a sort of the Bible for how we undertake decisions. It sets out what material planning considerations are, what you can and can't take into account. It establishes, as that paragraph points out there, it just concludes that actually taking into account residential amenity is a material consideration. So yes, you know, it's fundamental to all of our decisions, and you'll see it on, I think, all the reports will actually refer to the Development Management Manual for that basis. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll bring back in the local member, because obviously as yet, even though we can see where members are sort of thinking, we obviously haven't had a proposal or anything like that as yet. Okay, so Councillor Melvin Mile.
Just before I make a proposal, I'd just like to sort of come back to Paul Griffin about the boundary being 6 meters away from the balcony. I would agree that the boundary of the garden next door is 6 meters away, but the property itself, and this is on a hill. This is a slope. You know, you can barely stand on it. The house is miles away. Anyway, I would like to make a proposal. We just grant this application, but if overlooking does remain a concern, I'm sure that the conditions could be applied where we could put in a, you know, they could put in a oh, what you got it? What's the word I'm thinking of? An opaque glass balcony. Yeah. That would sort out the overlooking completely. So I propose that we grant it.
Okay, so presumably reading between the lines of what people have said, in terms of recommendation 1, it is the opinion that the local planning authority that the proposal does not respect the character of development in the immediate locality. I think a few members have obviously commented on that, and you would just disagree with that point, and you would think that it does respect the nature of the area. And
similarly with point 2, Chair.
Okay, so we'll just clarify on point 2, because obviously point 1 is more of an opinion point. So we'll just clarify on point 2 that we're okay with the reason to grant over the topography. I think obviously the steepness of it does have an impact, which I discussed with officers this morning before committee. But we'll just go to officers to check, and obviously just about that condition, whether we put that on or whether we leave it off. So I'll just bring in Paul Mead now. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, I think we're hearing loud and clear the issues that are being raised by members here in terms of the officer recommendation. I'll just reiterate Paul Griffin's comments before that. I think we'd, as officers, probably be criticised if we did go against what the AONB committee was saying to us quite clearly, and what NRW was saying to us quite clearly. But obviously, there are opinions and there are issues here that are a bit subjective in terms of impact on the character and the openness of the area. So we do have a proposed reason to go against the officer recommendation on that point. I think just picking up on Councillor Miles' issue there, obviously if this was to go against officer recommendation, what we tend to do is pull together a set of planning conditions anyway that we'd try and agree with the local member. And if we were thinking that there maybe would be one on there that could go on relating to obscure glass for the balcony, we would certainly put that on. So I think it's just to reiterate that obviously the officer recommendation was quite clear because of the responses that we've had on this and the planning history, but we can hear members' views in terms of their own views on the character of the area. So I think it's probably a for and against there, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Markian,
yes,
thank
please.
You. Okay, so that's been proposed and seconded. It's quite clear, and then the conditions will come back to the local members on that, which obviously can include what Councillor Melvin Meyer was saying if necessary. So again, we'll go through the voting system. We'll do it in alphabetical order. Yep. So the proposal is to grant, going against officer recommendation. So the proposal is to grant this application. So therefore, if you vote for, you'll be voting to grant it. If you vote against, you'll be voting against granting it, to refuse it in accordance with officer recommendation. And then obviously the abstain is an option as well. We will go through it in alphabetical order. If you just unmute a couple of seconds before you know it's going to be your time. And obviously saying it in English or Cymraeg is obviously absolutely fine. Okay, so first of all, Cynghorydd Mabon ap Gwynfor.
For.
Ellie Chard, Councillor Ellie Chard.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Ann Davis. Councillor Peter Evans.
For.
Councillor Alan James.
For.
Councillor Ann Jones. All right, he's disappeared. Okay, we'll just won't count that vote. Councillor Tina Jones.
For.
Councillor Cynghorydd Kensler.
For.
Councillor Christine Marston.
For.
Councillor Melvin Mile.
For.
Councillor Bob Murray.
For.
Councillor Mervyn Parry. Councillor Paul Penlington. Councillor Pete Prendergast.
For.
Councillor Peter Scott.
For.
Councillor Tony Thomas. For. Councillor Julian Thompson Hill.
For.
Councillor Joe Welch. Me. For. Cynghorydd MS Wynne.
For.
Councillor Mark Young.
For.
Have I missed out any councillors? If I have, that are on the committee, speak now. Hopefully not. Okay, we'll just add those up. So we've got 19 for, no against, and no abstains for that one. Therefore, that application has been granted, going against officer recommendation for that one. Okay, so thank you, Mr. Dewey. If you now leave the meeting, that will be appreciated. For our next item. So we are moving on to agenda item number, let me get this the right way around. I've got so many pieces of paper. Agenda item number 7, which is on page 67 of our reports. And it's the land adjacent to BRYNTIRION, GELLIFOR. So let me just find that on our reports. Again, little bit of information on the blue sheets just to be looking through as I introduce the item. Okay, that you'll see, and then I'll bring in the public speaker in a moment. So it's page number 67 of our reports. It's agenda item 7. The ward is Llanbedr Clwyd, Llangenhafal. The ward member is Councillor Hugh O. Williams. The application number is 22/2020/1022/PF. The proposal is the erection of 2 dwellings, construction of a new vehicular access and associated works. It is a resubmission. The location is land adjacent to BRYNTIRION, GELLIFOR, RUTHIN. As I said, there is a little bit of information on the blue sheets. We do not have a public speaker against, but we do have a public speaker for, which is Robert Jones, the agent. So is Robert Jones in the meeting? Okay. So Mr. Jones, when you start addressing the committee, you will have 3 minutes to address the committee. It might be an idea just having a stopwatch by your side, just so you see, because you will be stopped when you get to 3 minutes. Okay. So whenever you're ready, I will start the timing. Okay.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you and good morning. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to present this proposal before you today. My name is Robert Jones and I represent the building plot. We are the agent for the applicant acting on behalf of our client, Urban Build Limited. I'm a qualified architect registered with the ARB and a member of the Royal Institute of British Architects with over 15 years experience in the industry. I've led the design development between applications and I'm well positioned to provide you an overview of the design decisions made to date. In March 2020, an application was submitted to the local planning authority for the erection of 2 new properties within the settlement boundary of GELLIFOR village. As the year drew to a close, the content of the application presented before you today was prepared to replace the original design. However, in parallel, the application was determined and the refusal notice issued. The reasons for refusal centered around scale, design, form, massing, and material. Following our resubmission, we now believe that the proposal has addressed these concerns, which is further endorsed by the planning set. The site is centered between two existing properties, Glasford to the south and Brynteg to the north. Both properties are 2-storey in scale, as are over half of the properties within the local proximity. The proposal makes every effort to limit its overall scale, providing modest floor-to-floor heights and limiting the overall pitch and ridge lines. The accompanying street elevation scene, which is included within the officer's report, illustrates that the overall scale is in keeping with the properties directly adjacent. Like the reconsideration of scale, the reduction of accommodation area and the relocation of garages has reduced the mass of the elevation and revealed the depth of each plot. This also had a secondary purpose, allowing parking to the side of each unit, reducing visual clutter, simplifying turning areas, and limiting the quantity of hard standing. This reduction in scale and subdivision of space has dictated the revised layout, which while observing the appropriate interface distances with the properties directly adjacent over the highway. The reproportion of these volumes has also maximised the rear amenity space, which benefits from open countryside views to the west. Shared access to the highway remains centred to the plot, providing the maximum visibility in both northern and southern directions. The speed survey submitted in combination with a topographical survey has addressed the requirements of TAN 18. With the introduction of the hedgerow behind the line of visibility provides an unobstructed, easily maintainable grass verge, improving safety for both the residents and those using the public highway. The appearance of the properties has been carefully reconsidered and designed to complement the existing vernacular. The design now follows a more traditional mass and form, utilising a proposed material palette of antique render and dark grey highlights visible at Brynteg, while maintaining the modern crisp lines of rain screen cladding to provide a subtle visual contrast. We will local planning authorities for approval to support this in time.
Thank you very much. I'm right on time. Okay, thank you for that. There is a little bit of information, as I said, on the blue sheet. So it is an additional condition. So if we just think about that when we are, if you are minded to propose to grant it or anything, that whether you want to include that, obviously that's what officers suggesting, that additional condition number 10, which is on the blue sheets. Do we have any speakers? I don't think the local member is present at the meeting. Do we have any speakers on this? If anyone just wants to unmute and speak, as I can't see any hands up, so you would be the first if anyone does want to comment on this. Deathly silence. Do officers have anything to add on this?
No, can I propose?
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Councillor Mervyn Parry proposing to grant, seconded by Councillor Ann Davis. I can see that. I think if we're happy, that obviously everyone's speak. Okay. So that is to grant in accordance with officer recommendation. So happy with that. Yep. Okay. So we'll go to
Chair.
Yes, sorry. We'll go to Gwyneth Kensler first, and I think Christine was just going to say something, so that's fine. Cynghorydd Gwyneth Kensler cynta?
Is that with the additional in the late notes? Yes, good point.
Got to ask about that. Councillor Christine Marston, is that what you were going to ask as well? Okay. So yeah, Councillor Mervyn Parry, if we just clarify that, is that to grant in accordance with officer recommendation with the additional condition?
Yeah, let's go with the officer recommendation to go with the conditions.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Ann Davis, you're happy to second that? Yep. Okay. So we'll go to the vote. Similarly, okay, if you vote for, you'll be voting to grant in accordance with officer recommendation with the additional condition, voting against, to vote against the application, and then obviously abstain. Okay, so Cynghorydd Mabon.
Councillor Mabon ap Gwynfor. I'm struggling here, sorry. No, I can hear you. 4.
Ellie Chard, Councillor Ellie Chard.
To grant.
Councillor Anne Davis. Councillor Peter Evans.
4.
Councillor Alan James.
4.
Councillor Brian Jones.
I've hung around for this one. 4.
There you go, thank you. Councillor Dina Jones.
4.
Councillor Cynghorydd Gwyneth Kensler.
4.
Councillor Christine Marston.
4.
Councillor Melvin Lyle.
4.
Councillor Bob Murray.
4.
Councillor Mervyn Parry.
4.
Councillor Paul Penlington.
4.
Councillor Pete Prendergast.
4.
Councillor Peter Scott.
4.
Councillor Tony Thomas.
4.
Councillor Julian Thompson Hill.
4.
Councillor Joe Welch. 4. Cynghorydd Emrys Wyn.
Councillor Emrys Wyn. 4.
Councillor Mark Young.
4.
Okay, that's a simple one. I can do that addition. That is 24, 0 against and 0 abstain. Therefore, that application has been granted in accordance with officer recommendation with the additional condition. We are moving on to agenda item number 8, which is on page 97 of your reports. We also have a little bit of information on the blue sheets there. So on the second to last page, so if you just notice that. Okay. So let's move on to that. So page 97 of the reports. The ward is Denbigh Upper / HENLLAN. The ward members are Councillors Geraint Lloyd Williams and then Councillor Glenn Swingler is not mentioned on page 97, but he most certainly is the ward member as well. Application number 28/2020/1024/PF. Proposal is the demolition of existing dwelling and erection of a replacement dwelling, detached garage amendment to existing access, landscaping and associated works. The location is Mount View, Bryn Road, HENLLAN, Denbigh, LL 16 5AH. Okay, and for this we do have public speakers both for and against. So as is with our protocol, the public speaker against will go first, and that will be Mrs. Pritchard. And when I finish speaking and you start speaking, Mrs. Pritchard, you will have 3 minutes to address the committee. It might be worthwhile just having a stopwatch nearby, because after 3 minutes you will be stopped from speaking. We are quite strict on that. Similarly with the public speaker for Mr. Adwin Jones, if you ensure that you've got just something to record your time with, because we will stop you after 3 minutes. Okay, so first of all, I'd like to welcome Mrs. Pritchard to address the committee. When you start speaking, you'll have 3 minutes.
Good morning. Thank you.
My name is Myra Pritchard and I'm 72 years old, Welsh speaker, recently widowed, and I lived in Belvedere, which is immediately next door to Mount View. As acknowledged on this application, the applicants did not consult with me about the plans to demolish entire existing property, and at first I heard it was on Christmas Eve when the council notification came through my door. My objection are the ground plan of the proposed development is 35% greater than the existing when the applicant purchased the property approximately 18 months ago. The corresponding increase in the living area is over 2.5 size of existing. The impact of the excessive and overbearing compared with the surrounding property and can be seen on proposed streets and is unacceptable. To accommodate the excessive size compared with the existing building of a new dwelling will protrude in front of my current position by some 3 meters, sticking out in front of my bungalow and presenting an unsight view of brickwork from my patio windows and casting shadow and restricted light over my property at certain times. The increase of the size of the property will be noise disturbance, especially in the area occupied by elderly retired people living in the bungalows. Demolition of existing properties comprised of local green agenda and could create noise disturbance, and could most probably go to the landfill, which is pollution and harassed waste with the older building. I'm concerned about the HENLLAN landfill, and it could be contamination. Also, a concern of the information from a neighbouring builder that its existing Mount View building could be formed on rock. As a new foundation, new necessary be deeper due to the lower finished floor level, the possible of breakers, drills, and use of explosives even to create more dust, noise, vibration, possible damage to my property. I understand this the project will be self-built projects and renowned for delay for months or years, when unforeseen conditions similar to those mentioned above are encountered. I sincerely hope the committee members will uphold my objection and reject the Mount View planning application so I can spare the trauma of having demolished and building site next door, with the resulting of permanent structure sticking out in front of my property.
Diolch yn fawr, thank you. Okay. So now we have a public speaker 4, which is a Mr. Arwyn Jones. So similarly, you will have 3 minutes to address the committee. As soon as you start speaking, you will have 3 minutes. Okay, so when you're ready, you may start. You're on mute at the moment. There you go. Okay, so when you're ready, off you go.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about our application, planning application. I will be speaking in English for the rest of the discussion.
Regarding our planning application, I would like to introduce myself and my fiancée Gaynor. We are both local to Denbighshire. Gaynor is currently a COVID vaccination nurse at Ysbyty Glan-Clwyd, and I am a self-employed joiner working locally. Gaynor grew up in HENLLAN and so have her 2 Welsh-speaking sons. Her youngest attends Ysgol HENLLAN and her eldest Ysgol Glan-Clwyd. Gaynor's family and her children's father have lived in the village since 1974. Mount View was previously owned by a family relation, and it was his wish for Mount View to become Gaynor's home after her marriage broke down. I am a widow with 3 teenage children who all attend Ysgol Glan-Clwyd and are Welsh speakers like myself. Gaynor and I were childhood sweethearts and found happiness together again with our 2 families. We feel passionate about living in HENLLAN and wish to continue supporting the Welsh character and language of the community, also bringing vitality of youth within the village. We have compromised and done everything we can to make changes regarding concerns. We have removed windows to respect privacy to the house, and the house has been lowered. All areas of concerns raised by HENLLAN Community Council have been resolved. All steps have been taken to maintain and enhance biodiversity as required. We feel that the proposed property will not be excessive. We have worked to ensure the existing footprint is not increased dramatically and in character with the existing property. We are not property developers building a luxury 5-bedroom house with an excessive number of bathrooms and living areas. We have 5 children. 2 teenage girls and 3 boys, 1 aged 18. The number of proposed rooms are necessary, not luxury. We are caring and considerate people. We do not want to cause upset or any distress to Mrs. Pritchard or any of our neighbours. We ourselves and our children have had upset and heartache in the past, but we have found love and happiness together. We would like the opportunity to build a family home at Mount View to become one family. We hope we have satisfied the requirements needed to approve our plans. We would like to thank you once again for your time. Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr, thank you. Okay, do officers want to come in initially? No, happy, okay. I know one of the local members, Councillor Garrett Lloyd-Williams, is not with us today. He's been signed off sick with work, so he can't join us today. But the other member I think is here. So Councillor Glenn Swingler, would you like to address the committee first of all?
Yeah, good morning, thank you. I don't have anything specific to say at this moment, but I may want to come in later, Councillor Welch, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, that's fine. If you store it all up, you can come in at the end if you like, or whenever suits. But yeah, that'd be great. Okay. Do any other members want to speak on this item?
Yes, please, Chair.
Okay, I've got Councillor Paul Pennington. I have got some other speakers, so I'll just note those all down. Councillor Paul Pennington first.
Oh, sorry, Chair, and other speakers. I couldn't find the place to put my hand up, so I just spoke out. It's obviously a very emotive issue, but I would be certainly tending to vote in favour. The one question I would have, there's reference in the additional papers to if any kind of contaminant is discovered, the development will halt. Who's going to keep an eye on whether contaminants are discovered or not?
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bryan Jones, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. If I could just say well done to the two speakers, excellent presentations there, putting their cases forward. Yeah, well done to them. I think we need to remind ourselves here that we sit at these planning committee meetings and we use the planning guidance to make the decisions. That sort of sets it aside from all other points that might be made when we're debating applications. When you look at the responses to this application, there is perfectly good reasons there to go against officer recommendation on this application. They're there in black and white. Couple of the points, potentially it's overbearing, the blocking of the light. Again, planning guidance is guidance, but when you look at blocking of light into an adjacent property, I think that's a big consideration to take into account. And again, I'll make no apologies for making the point again, we use the tools of planning guidance. The drainage issues that's covered in the report, it makes note of draining issues, but it certainly doesn't give any assurances, as Councillor Pendleton's just mentioned, that the issues will be addressed, the historical issues will be addressed. When we've made the decision today, if the application goes forward, it's somebody else's problem on drainage down the line if it's not addressed. We know we're under pressure with the enforcement. We've only got one officer in place at the moment, and we know there's a lot of holes in how we enforce with the capacity of one man. In a lot of cases, we don't enforce. So I'd just like to draw the attention of the planning committee to some of the points in those responses which leads you down the road of going against officer recommendation on this one.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mervyn Parry.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, I'd like to propose this development. I mean, I've looked at it, and you know, there were a few issues with it to start with, but I think the applicants have addressed certain things with the window that was overlooking. They've reduced the height of it. With the drainage, that was an issue. There's new drainage being set into the place, and also knowing the location fairly well with the conditions of the dump that was behind it. I remember that dump when it was there, and if anybody knows where where this house is, it's actually at the top of the dump bit, not at the bottom. So if there's any seepage from that dump, it's likely to be at the other end of the dump, not where this house is. So I'd like to propose that we go with officer and grant this application.
Good.
Thank you. So proposal to grant in accordance with officer recommendation. Do we have a seconder for that? I can see Councillor Peter Evans, I think, with his hand up there. Thank you. So that's been proposed and seconded. I have got other speakers, but just to clarify, so we've got that clear. Cynghorydd Gwyneth Kensler, and then I'll bring in the officers.
The speaker, the lady speaker against, talked about the possibility that there would be, or that was the rock beneath the present building, and that would be very difficult to get rid of, and also perhaps the pollution. Is it possible to put one condition that they do tests? That you can do tests of the land before you commence building to see what type of land you have and if there is pollution and rock underneath it. Thank you.
Okay, I'll bring in Paul Mead now, because there's been a few obviously comments and questions, and then I have got another few speakers, so which is obviously fine. So Paul Mead, would you like to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just picking up on some of the points that were made by members there. Obviously, we are talking about a site within the development boundary that's got an existing property on it. So at some point, somebody built a house there. What we're looking for is a replacement of that dwelling. Obviously, that would be, we'd need to follow building regulations for that as well. So there'd be checks done on ground conditions during the building regulations process. But we also have got a proposed additional condition that you can see on your blue sheet there, which is around a construction method statement. So I think in terms of Councillor Kensler's point there, we would be, prior to any development commencing, need details of a construction method statement that would outline how the development will proceed. It would also hopefully address some of the issues raised by the neighbour around control of noise and dust, etc. So that is an additional condition on your blue sheet. I think in response to Councillor Brian Jones's points, he's picked up some of the issues within the officer's report. He's not picked out the other ones, which obviously leads to our recommendation to grant. So we obviously feel that the issue of impact on neighbours, impact on drainage, and all the relevant material considerations are being addressed here, and that's why we've got a recommendation to grant. I think in relation to all the other points that were raised, they're already detailed in the report or they're covered by the planning conditions. So I think obviously Councillor Mervyn Parry's proposed to go with the officer recommendation. That's been seconded. So we can potentially go to the vote if there's no more questions. We've got more questions.
Yeah, no, got
okay.
Another 5 speakers. Sorry, Paul. I'm just noticing now actually with this one, we obviously have got the additional conditions. So I did forget to mention that again. So Councillor Mervyn Parry, are you happy to suggest we grant in accordance with officer recommendation with the 2 additional conditions, conditions 6 and 7?
Yes, happy to go with that, Chair.
And Peter, you happy to second that?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. So I have got a few more speakers. Councillor Christine. Yes, yep. Sorry, I got that, Peter. Yep, thank you. Sorry, didn't acknowledge it. Councillor Christine Marston.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to draw the attention of officers to the overbearing nature of a proposed dwelling onto the bungalow next door. Can there be a sort of compromise where the proposed dwelling be set back in line with the bungalow so that the overbearing shadowing onto the bungalow is perhaps not so much of an issue, and it will be in line with the sort of development along that road? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Cynghorydd Emrys Wyn.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, a question about the potential of there are measurements that have been used in the past, 45-degree, and in terms of shadowing. Have these measurements been used with this application? And I've read in the report in terms of overshadowing that the elements of the site of the new property and the bungalow. Sorry, I missed that. He's breaking up. Could I just have confirmation on that? Maybe you could repeat that.
Can you just repeat the last little bit?
Could you?
You just broke up a little bit, just probably the last 2 sentences.
Yes, I read in the report, in fact, that the location of the property which is making the application and the bungalow nearby, which is where Mrs. Pritchard lives, is they catch the sunlight for a greater part of the day. I understand it from the report. They're in sunlight. Are there any measurements been done on the overshadowing or the potential for overshadowing with this application? Remembering what I said, the 21-degree and the 45-degree elements here. Thank you.
Okay. I'll just bring in the office. I know there's a couple more members who want to speak, but I'll just bring on the officers because I think those 2 comments are both sort of similar on shadowing and things like that. So do officers want to come in on that?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think obviously we've got to assess the proposal that's before us in terms of the way the building is proposed to be sited. So I don't think we can condition the moving of the dwelling in answer to Councillor Christine Marston's point. And obviously just to follow that up, officers have assessed the potential impacts of the dwelling on neighbouring properties in relation to light and the 45-degree rule, etc. And clearly we've written reports to members before where we've made those assessments, and clearly proposals have breached that 45-degree rule, and we've considered that there would be negative impacts here. We clearly don't, hence our recommendation. Hopefully that's clear, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that is, because I think it is an important point, and it's important to mention it. And obviously the officers have done the work with regards to that shadowing and the sunlight. I've got 3 more speakers still, plus the local member. So Councillor Peter Scott.
Thank you, Chair. Just a point of interest. I'm just looking at page 116 and the proposed street scene sketch image. I must admit, if it looks anything like that, it does look rather overbearing, but I'm hoping it won't be in that brick colour and everything. But happy to listen to the debate, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I think it's not going to be that bright. I'm pretty sure it's not. But it's a good comment, because, you know, if it did end up being that bright, we see, well, why didn't you mention it in planning? So, yeah, Councillor Mark Young.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for that. Just a clarification. It's been mentioned that the new property is 3 metres forward than the old property. Are we allowed to do that? Just clarification, because I've been asked that question, because I know sometimes we do try and keep them in line. But I do note that work's been done and windows have been moved to accommodate concerns. And lastly, I've spoken to both applications, really good people. And whatever happens today, I hope we can all not fall out and get on with our lives. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mark Young. Councillor Brian Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, question for Mr. Mead. He made comment about a construction method statement. Can he confirm that that method statement is not legally binding and it cannot be enforced? So although you'll put the construction method statement on the table, basically it can be ignored. Would he agree with that comment?
Okay, I'll bring in Paul Mead now, and then I'll bring in, if the local member, if you've got anything to add, then you can do so. And then I think we will go to the vote, as long as everyone's had answers to their questions, okay?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just running through the points that were raised in order there. I think Councillor Peter Scott, yeah, the image that's put within the report is a little bit stark, really. I think in terms of controls and materials, etc., it wouldn't look quite as bright and as bold as that. In response to Councillor Mark Young's point, again, I go back to the issues that I mentioned before. It is a replacement dwelling. We've got to assess the replacement dwelling as it's been shown on the submitted plans in terms of its location. There has been some work done on orientation and use of windows, etc. And so we consider that it's an acceptable impact on the neighbours. And then finally, in response to Councillor Brian Jones's comment, we do have a condition there for the submission of a construction method statement. Within that construction method statement, there'll be various things that are listed within your blue sheet there around how the development will proceed, where materials will be stored, measures to control dust and noise, etc. And yeah, that's a legally binding document on the planning consent. So if that condition is breached, we can step in and serve a breach of condition notice. If that breach of condition notice isn't complied with, then we can prosecute for the breach of condition notice. So in answer to your question, it is a binding condition, and we will look to enforce the terms of it once we've agreed it. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I think that was all clear, and everyone's had answers to their questions. Local member, do you want to come in and add anything?
Thank you. I've spoken to Mrs. Pritchard and to Mr. Jones over this, both on a couple of occasions. Mr. Jones has made significant changes to his original plans to try and locate the neighbour, Mrs. Pritchard, on one side. There is a house to the other side. It's not just all bungalows in an estate on that part of HENLLAN, if anybody knows it. Changes have been made. I can't personally see that. I do hope Mrs. Pritchard sees that when it's completed that it will enhance the area and not take away her light. All those conditions seem to now have been met, and I'm pleased Mr. Jones has taken these things on board and has made these changes to try and you know, fit in with his neighbours. Yeah, I have no objections to this that I can see under the conditions that have been put in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure, Brian Jones, did you just want to come back on the thing that Paul Mead said?
Very briefly, yeah, because it's straying a little bit away from this application in some respects. I don't totally agree with Mr. Mead's response there. And off this meeting, I will quote an example to him where Denbighshire Planning put a construction method statement in place, and rightly or wrongly, I was told it wasn't worth the paper it was written on because you can't enforce it, but we'll deal with that outside this meeting. Thank you,
Chair. Can I come in with a point of order there, please?
Yeah.
I don't think we should assume that any applicants won't comply with any notices. I don't think that's fair. I would like to point out that I'm pretty sure they will comply. So I'd like to make that point because it sounds a bit negative to me.
Thank you, Councillor Alan James.
And I'd like to support that. I think Councillor Mark Young has said it's already starting, that there is a negative approach, in my view, to the applicants, and I don't think we should be looking at that. We should be looking at what we've got in front of us here and this application and nothing else. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yes, so obviously we need to approach this application with an open mind. Obviously, Councillor Brian Jones, your points have been noted, and I think you can take that up with the planning department. We've obviously had what Paul Mead has said, that it is a legally and binding condition, and that's what we need to go off. And it's all being recorded as well, so it's all there. So we're going to go to the vote. We are going to, so we've got obviously the three options. If we just run through them again, we can vote for this, which will be in accordance with officer recommendation to grant the application with the two additional conditions, which are on the blue sheets. You could obviously vote against it with the, obviously, if you did decide to do that, you would need to think of reasons for it, because we haven't had any of those. We've only had the other side of it. Or you could obviously vote to abstain. Okay, so we'll go through in alphabetical order again. Councillor Cynghorydd.
Councillor Mabrouk Gwynfor, 4.
Councillor Ellie Chard.
To grant.
Councillor Ann Davis. Councillor Peter Evans.
4.
Councillor Alan James.
Yeah, to grant.
Councillor Brian Jones.
And after all that, 4.
Councillor Tina Jones.
4.
Cynghorydd Gwyneth Kensler.
4.
Councillor Christine Marston.
4.
Councillor Melvin Mile.
4.
Councillor Bob Murray.
4.
Councillor Mervyn Parry. 4. Councillor Paul Penlington.
4.
Councillor Pete Prendergast.
4.
Councillor Peter Scott.
4.
Councillor Tony Thomas. Councillor Tony Thomas, are you there? I see your name. There you go. Councillor Joe Welch, I'm 4. Cynghorydd Emma Swyn.
4.
And Councillor Mark Young.
4.
Chair, you managed to jump past me, but I'm 4 as well.
Oh, sorry, I did. I apologise.
He does everyone.
I'm blaming Tony Thomas for not replying quickly enough. Sorry, Tony. Sorry, Julian as well. Thank you. Right. So that is 4 is 20, against is 0, and abstain is 0. Therefore, that application has been granted in accordance with officer recommendation with the two additional comments, conditions on it. Okay. So we'll say goodbye to our speakers, Mrs. Pritchard and Mr. and Mrs. Jones. Thank you for joining us. And also Councillor Mervyn Parry, if you want to leave the meeting now, there'll be no need to rejoin the meeting, Councillor Mervyn Parry, because there's nothing else after agenda item 6, okay? I'm sure somebody will let you know how the application and the result of it is, okay? So
Can we have a 5 minutes break?
I don't think we're going to be much longer than 5 minutes. If you're okay. Are you okay for 5 minutes? I can't hear you, sorry. I don't think, I could be wrong, but I don't think this is going to be a very long one. Okay. And I'll talk quick. Yeah. So agenda item 6, page 45. The ward is Llandurnog. The ward members, Councillor Mervyn Parry. The application 18/2020/1050/PF. The proposal is the construction of a new vehicular access and erection of a replacement shed. The location is land opposite BRYNTIRION Cottage, BODFARI, DENBIGH, LL16 4HU. There's no late information on the blue sheet. The reason it is coming to committee is that it is an application submitted on behalf of the county councillor. So you can see that the comments on there. The officer recommendation is to grant. So do we have any speakers on this item? Cynghorydd Gwyneth Kensler.
I move that we approve this. Thank you.
For that, Councillor Ann Davis, I saw put a hand up. Thank you very much. Do we have any other speakers on this item? Okay, so you are, so we've had a proposal to grant in accordance with officer recommendation. We've had that seconded as well. Okay, so we will go to the vote unless anyone has any other comments. Speak now. Okay, Cynghorydd.
Councillor Mabon ap Gwynfor. For.
Ellie Chard.
To grant.
Councillor Ann Davis. Councillor Peter Evans.
For.
Councillor Alan James.
Yeah, grant.
Councillor Brian Jones.
For.
Councillor Tina Jones.
For.
Councillor Gwyneth Kensler.
For.
Councillor Christine Marston.
For.
Councillor Melvin Mile.
For.
Councillor Bob Murray.
Come on, Bob.
Bob is on mute.
You're on mute, Bob.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. For.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Penlington.
For.
Councillor Pete Prendergast.
For.
Councillor Peter Scott.
For.
Councillor Tony Thomas.
For.
Councillor Julian Thompson Hill.
For.
Councillor Joe Welch. For. Cynghorydd Emrys.
Councillor Emrys Wyn. For. For.
Councillor Mark Young. Can't hear you, Mark. Don't know where you are.
Yeah, I'm tempted, but I'm going to say 4.
I was wondering whether you were just going to go against them. Okay, so we have 4, 19 against 0, abstain 0. Therefore, that application has been granted in accordance with officer recommendation, and that ends our meeting. So thank you very much for attending today, and I will see you sometime mid-April. Take care, everyone. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.